There are places in the Middle East where history isn't linear, where civilizations built on top of civilizations, layer after layer, going back thousands of years. And sometimes, buried beneath all that history, there are things that should have stayed buried. Things that ancient people sealed away for reasons we didn't understand. Until we opened the seals. Until we went inside. Until 10 of us entered that structure beneath Raqqa, and only 4 of us came back. If you're ready, subscribe to the channel and like the video. We're heading to Raqqa. I'm Captain James Reaper Mitchell, U.S. Army Special Forces, 5th Special Forces Group. I've done 4 tours in Iraq, 3 in Afghanistan, countless operations across Syria. I've cleared buildings, I've hunted high-value targets, I've operated in some of the worst urban combat environments on Earth. But nothing prepared me for what we found beneath the city, for what ISIS had been trying to wake up, for the reason they fought so hard to keep us out of that one specific building in all of Raqqa. It started in July 2017, during the final push to liberate Raqqa from ISIS control. The city was a nightmare. Urban warfare at its worst. Every building booby-trapped. Every street mined. Snipers on every rooftop. And ISIS fighters who would rather die than surrender. We'd been grinding through the city block by block for months. Thousands of coalition forces, backed by air support, artillery, and every asset we could bring to bear. But there was one compound that ISIS defended differently, more desperately, more fanatically. Intelligence designated it Target Building 117, a mosque complex in the old city, converted by ISIS into a command center. Standard target. We cleared dozens like it. But this one was different. Every time coalition forces approached, ISIS threw everything at them. Suicide bombers, vehicle-borne IEDs, counterattacks from multiple directions. They were willing to sacrifice hundreds of fighters to keep us away from that one building. That got command's attention. Because when an enemy fights that hard for something, it's usually worth taking. I was given command of a joint special operations task force. 10 operators. Mix of Green Berets, Delta, and SEAL team members. The best urban warfare specialists we had. Our mission was simple: infiltrate the compound, eliminate all hostile forces, secure any intelligence materials, and determine why ISIS valued this location so highly. My team assembled in a forward operating base 3 kilometers from Target Building 117. These were men I'd worked with before, men I trusted with my life. Lieutenant Marcus Bull Ramirez, my second in command. Former Delta Force, expert in close quarters combat. Had cleared more buildings than anyone else I knew. Chief Petty Officer David Doc Chen, our medic and communications specialist. SEAL Team 6 veteran. Could keep someone alive through anything. Staff Sergeant James Rodriguez, our breacher and explosives expert. Could open any door, could find any trap, could identify any IED by smell alone. Sergeant First Class Aaron Shadow Williams, our sniper and overwatch specialist. 200 confirmed kills. Eyes that could spot threats 300 meters out. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, our intel specialist and Arabic speaker. Had grown up in Lebanon, understood the culture, could read enemy tactics before they happened. Sergeant Jake Porter, youngest member at 25, but already a veteran of 50 combat operations. Natural survivor. Had a sixth sense for danger. Staff Sergeant Eric Webb, our drone operator and tech specialist. Could hack anything, could fly anything, could turn enemy technology against them. Corporal Ryan Foster, our combat engineer. Could assess structural integrity, could find underground spaces, could navigate any terrain. Specialist Thomas Anderson, our weapons specialist. Carried enough firepower to fight a small war. Could operate any weapon system ever made. And Specialist Daniel Brooks, our scout and forward observer. Could move through urban terrain like a ghost. Eyes and ears of the team. We studied satellite imagery for days. The compound covered an entire city block. Central mosque with a minaret that ISIS had turned into a sniper position. Multiple buildings connected by covered walkways. Underground parking that intelligence suggested connected to a tunnel system. But there was something else. Ground-penetrating radar showed anomalies beneath the compound. Voids, chambers, spaces that didn't match any known construction. Smuggling tunnels? Ramiro suggested during the final briefing. Wrong pattern, Foster said, studying the scans. Smuggling tunnels are narrow, just wide enough to move goods. These chambers are massive, 30 meters across in some places. And look at the depth. Some of these spaces are 50 meters below street level. That's not modern construction. That's ancient. Torres pulled up historical data. This part of Raqqa was built on top of Roman ruins. Before that, Assyrian. Before that, older civilizations we don't even have names for. The whole city is basically an archaeological layer cake. ISIS has been looting ancient sites, selling artifacts to fund operations. Maybe they found something valuable down there. Then why defend it instead of or won't move? Shadow, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. I've been watching this compound through drone feeds for 3 weeks. There's a pattern. Every night, between 0200 and 0400 hours, we detect lights deep underground. Not the main mosque. Below it. In those chambers Foster mentioned. And we hear sounds. What kind of sounds? I asked. Chanting. Singing, like religious ritual, and something else. Machinery, generators, power tools. They're not just hiding down there. They're working on something, building something, or opening something. That information changed the mission profile. This wasn't just a raid anymore. It was an investigation. Command wanted us to find out what ISIS was doing in those underground chambers. What they discovered, what they were protecting. We inserted at 0300 hours, during the darkest part of the night. No moon. Perfect conditions for night vision operations. We came in from the east, through a section of the city that had been cleared weeks earlier. Brooks led the way, moving through the rubble like smoke. We followed in a tactical column, weapons up, every sense alert. The city at night was hell. Fires still burning from airstrikes. Buildings collapsed into the streets. The smell of death everywhere. Bodies that hadn't been recovered yet. Unexploded ordnance. Booby traps. And ISIS fighters who knew we were coming. They always knew. We were 300 meters from the compound when the first shot rang out. Sniper. From a building to our north. The round hit the wall next to Anderson, missing by inches. Shadow immediately identified the position. 11 o'clock. 4th floor. Eastern window. Single shooter. Shadow, take him, I ordered. Shadow's rifle cracked once. The enemy sniper fell silent. We kept moving. 200 meters out, we encountered our first IED. Rodriguez spotted the pressure plate buried in debris. We marked it, moved around. 50 meters further, another one. Then another. The approaches to the compound were seeded with explosives. ISIS had been preparing for this assault for months. 100 meters out, we entered what Foster called the kill zone. Open ground. No cover. Any movement would be visible to defenders in the compound. This is where conventional forces would have been slaughtered. But we weren't conventional forces. We moved in pairs, using thermal smoke for concealment, suppressed weapons to eliminate threats silently. Webb flew his micro-drone ahead, giving us real-time imagery of enemy positions. I count 12 tangos on the surface, Webb reported. 3 in the minaret, 4 in the courtyard, 5 in the main building. But there's something wrong. They're not looking outward. They're looking down, at the ground, like they're guarding something beneath them, not around them. The entrance to the underground, Torres realized. They're not worried about us attacking from outside. They're worried about something coming up from below. That statement chilled everyone. ISIS fighters were the most fanatical enemies we'd ever fought. They feared nothing, welcomed death. But these fighters were afraid of something in their own compound, of something beneath their feet. We reached the compound wall at 0345 hours. Rodriguez planted shaped charges at 3 points along the wall. Precise demolition. Just enough explosive to create breaches without bringing down the structure. We stacked up, weapons ready, waiting for the blast. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The explosives detonated. 3 holes appeared in the wall. We poured through simultaneously, multiple entry points to divide the enemy's attention. The courtyard was chaos. ISIS fighters turned, fired wildly. We engaged with practiced precision. Suppressed weapons. Aimed shots. 12 enemy combatants down in 15 seconds. Clean. Professional. Brutal. But as we secured the courtyard, I saw what Webb had meant. The dead ISIS fighters had been positioned around an entrance in the ground. A stone staircase descending into darkness. And around that entrance, they'd painted symbols. Not Arabic. Not anything I recognized. Ancient script. Warnings maybe. Or prayers. Shadow, Anderson, secure the perimeter, I ordered. Torres, translate these symbols. Torres examined the painted warnings, his face growing pale in the infrared glow of our night vision. It's not Arabic. It's Aramaic. Ancient Aramaic. Older than Islam. Older than Christianity. These are protective wards. Binding symbols. This text here. He pointed to a specific phrase. It translates roughly to, do not wake the sleepers below. Do not break the seals. Do not speak the names written in stone. ISIS was trying to break the seals, Foster said, examining the entrance. Look at this. Fresh tool marks. Jackhammers. Cutting torches. They've been trying to force their way through something down there. Why? Doc asked. What's worth this much effort? Let's find out, I decided. Rodriguez, check for traps. Webb, get your drone down there. Brooks, Porter, you're with me. Everyone else, maintain security up here. We descended the stairs. Stone. Ancient. Carved by hands thousands of years dead. The steps went down 30 meters, then opened into a corridor. The walls were covered in more symbols. More warnings. And something else. Carvings. Pictographs showing figures that weren't quite human. Tall. Wrong proportions. Too many limbs. Doing things to people. Terrible things. These are older than anything I've seen, Torres said, his voice tight. These predate Mesopotamian civilization. We're talking 6,000 years old. Maybe more. And these images, they're not mythology. They're not religion. They're documentation. Recording actual events. The corridor led deeper. We followed it, weapons up, every step taking us further from the surface. Further from safety. The air changed. Got colder despite the desert heat above. Started to smell wrong. Like copper. Like old blood. Like something that had been sealed away for so long it had begun to rot. We found the first chamber after 100 meters. Massive. Circular. 50 meters across. The walls carved with more symbols, more warnings. And in the center, a well. Not for water. For something else. A shaft going down into darkness so deep our flashlights couldn't find the bottom. And around the well, bones. Human bones. Thousands of them. Arranged in patterns. Offerings maybe. Or warnings. Or both. What the hell were they worshipping down here? Anderson whispered. Not worshipping, Torres corrected. Containing. Look at the symbols around the well. These are binding wards. Sealing rituals. The bones aren't offerings. They're sacrifices. People who gave their lives to keep something locked down there. And ISIS was trying to open it, I realized. They found this place, discovered whatever's down there, and instead of sealing it back up, they tried to release it. We heard machinery ahead, generators, power tools, blood bleeding through a doorway at the far end of the chamber, voices, Arabic, frantic, arguing. We approached silently, weapons ready. The second chamber was worse. ISIS had set up a command post, laptops, communication equipment, maps, documents, but also ancient texts, clay tablets, scrolls, and tools, modern tools being used on ancient seals. They'd been working on a massive stone door, 30 feet tall, covered in warnings in a dozen dead languages, and they'd almost opened it. The seals were cracked. The door was ajar, and from the gap, something was bleeding through. Not light, the opposite of light. Darkness that moved, that reached, that hungered. 6 ISIS fighters were in the chamber, not soldiers anymore. Researchers, scholars, religious leaders. They'd exchanged weapons for books, combat for ritual. And when they saw us, they didn't fight. They begged. "Close it," one screamed in Arabic. "For the love of God, help us close it." We were wrong. We thought it would give us power. But it's... The darkness reached out from the crowd door, wrapped around the man. He screamed, not in pain, in terror, in absolute soul-destroying horror. And then he was gone, pulled through the gap into whatever was beyond that door. The other 5 ISIS members ran, not at us, away from the door, trying to escape what they'd released. "Fall back," I ordered. "Everyone out, now." But it was too late. The darkness wasn't just darkness. It was alive, sentient. It poured from the gap in the door like liquid shadow, spreading across the floor, climbing the walls, reaching for us with tendrils that defied physics. Where it touched the stone, the ancient carvings began to glow. Not with light, with an absence of light. The warnings were activating, trying to contain what had been released. Rodriguez threw a flashbang grenade at the advancing darkness. The explosive went off with a brilliant flash and deafening bang. For a second, the darkness recoiled. Then it surged forward, angrier now. Hungry. "Conventional weapons won't work," Taurus shouted. "This isn't physical. It's..." One of the fleeing ISIS members tripped. The darkness caught him. He didn't scream. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes went white. His body convulsed. And then he stood up. But it wasn't him anymore. Something else was wearing his skin, using his body, looking at us through his eyes. "Shoot him," Ramirez ordered. Anderson opened fire. Center mass. The possessed fighter didn't fall, didn't bleed, just kept walking toward us with that wrong, jerky gait. Like a puppet being controlled by someone who didn't quite understand how human bodies work. Porter put 3 rounds through the thing's head. It dropped. But the darkness that had animated it flowed out, searching for another host. "The door," Foster yelled. "We have to close the door. It's still coming through." He was right. The gap in the ancient seal was widening. The stone door that had held for thousands of years was being pushed open from inside. By what? By how many? And if 6,000 years of human sacrifice and binding rituals had been needed to seal it the first time, what chance did 10 modern soldiers have of stopping it now? "Rodriguez, can you blow the chamber?" I asked. "Collapse it?" "Maybe, but we're 50 meters underground. The blast could bring down the whole structure, including us. Better buried than whatever that thing wants to do to us." Rodriguez pulled out his remaining C4, started calculating charges. But we needed time. Time to set the explosives properly. Time to get clear before detonation. And the darkness wasn't giving us time. It filled half the chamber now. And worse, it was learning, adapting. The first possessed fighter had moved clumsily. The second one moved almost normally. The third one ran. Shadow fired. Headshot. The possessed dropped. But there were more now. 4, 5. The remaining ISIS members, all taken, all turned, all coming at us with hands that reached and mouths that opened too wide and eyes that reflected nothing human. Brooks, Porter, cover the exit. I commanded. Everyone else, fall back to the first chamber. We retreated in stages. Shadow and Anderson providing covering fire while the rest of us moved. Then they fell back while we covered. Standard tactical withdrawal. But the possessed weren't following standard tactics. They didn't take cover, didn't fear bullets, just kept coming. And behind them, the darkness kept spreading. We made it to the first chamber, the one with the well and the bone arrangements. Rodriguez was already placing charges on the support pillars. 2 minutes, he shouted. Then this whole section comes down. Where's Webb? Doc asked suddenly. We all looked around. Webb wasn't with us. He'd been rearguard, last to withdraw, and now he was gone, taken by the darkness or left behind or... I'm here, Webb's voice crackled over the radio. I stayed behind. Someone had to. I'm at the door. I can see what's on the other side. Webb, get out of there. I ordered. Can't. Darkness got my legs. Can't feel them. Can't move. But I can see. Captain, you need to know what this is. What we're dealing with. What ISIS was trying to wake up. Webb. They're not demons. Not monsters. They're us. Humans. From before. From so far back we don't have records. They found something. Power. Knowledge. They tried to become more than human. And they succeeded. But they lost what made them human in the process. Lost empathy. Lost conscience. Lost everything except hunger and hate. The civilizations after them had to lock them away. Had to sacrifice everything to seal them. And ISIS opened the seal because they thought they could control this power. Use it as a weapon. They were wrong. His voice was getting weaker. Distant. Like he was being pulled away. Webb, what do we do? How do we stop them? You can't. Not permanently. But you can slow them down. The seals. The bones in the first chamber. They're not just decorative. They're a circuit. A barrier. If you activate it, static. Then screaming. Not Webb's voice anymore. Something using his voice. Speaking in languages that hurt to hear. Making sounds that shouldn't come from human throats. Blow it, I decided. Rodriguez, blow everything. Bury this whole complex. Webb's still in there. Webb's gone. He died buying us this information. Don't let it be for nothing. Blow the charges. Rodriguez nodded. Set the timer. 2 minutes. We ran. Back up the corridor. Up the ancient stairs. Into the courtyard where Shadow and Anderson had been holding security. Except they weren't there anymore. The courtyard was empty. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Just empty. And the symbols that ISIS had painted around the entrance were glowing now. Pulsing. Active. Where did they go? Foster asked. Doesn't matter, Ramirez said. We've got 90 seconds before this place comes down. We need to... The ground shook. Not from the explosives. From something else. Something moving beneath our feet. The well in the first chamber connected to something deeper. The door we'd found wasn't the only entrance. There were others. Older entrances. Deeper seals. And they were all breaking. Buildings around the compound started collapsing. Not from explosives. From beneath. Sinkholes opening. Ancient chambers, hidden for millennia, suddenly exposed to the surface. And from those openings, darkness poured out. Into the streets of Raqqa. into the ruins. Spreading. Run. I screamed. We ran. Through the breach in the wall. Into the streets. Behind us, Rodriguez's charges detonated. The compound collapsed inward, the mosque's minaret falling, buildings imploding. A massive crater opened where target building 117 had stood. But it wasn't enough. The darkness was already spreading beyond the blast radius. Torres was beside me as we ran. "The bones," he shouted. Webb said the bones were a circuit, a barrier. We have to activate them. How? Blood sacrifice. That's what the ancients did. That's what the carving showed. They gave their lives to power the seal. We're not killing ourselves for a seal that's already broken. Not us. Them. He pointed. ISIS fighters were emerging from buildings all around us, not attacking us, running from the darkness just like we were. Dozens of them, fleeing their own base, terrified of what they'd unleashed. They opened the seal, Torres said. Their blood can close it. That's how binding rituals work. The one who breaks the seal has to pay to restore it. It was insane, but insane was all we had. How many? A lot. The seal has been broken for hours. The darkness has had time to spread. We'd need. He did quick math, at least 30. Maybe more. I looked at the fleeing ISIS fighters. Counted at least 40. Looked at my remaining team. 7 of us left. Webb gone. Shadow and Anderson missing. 3 of us lost in the first hour of this operation. We need to round them up, I said. Herd them back toward the compound. Force them into the crater where the bones are. They won't go willingly, Ramirez said. Then we make them. Doc, Foster, circle left. Torres, Brooks, circle right. Ramirez, Porter, you're with me. We drive them back. Use non-lethal force if possible. We need them alive until they're over the seal. It went against every instinct, against every rule of engagement. We were special operations soldiers. We killed the enemy. We didn't take prisoners in active combat zones. But this wasn't combat anymore. This was something else, something older. A war that predated nations and flags and modern weapons. A war between humanity and something that had stopped being human long ago. We herded them like animals, fired over their heads, cut off escape routes, drove the panicked ISIS fighters back toward the crater. They screamed at us in Arabic, begged. Some tried to surrender. Others tried to fight. But we were relentless, pushing them back toward the darkness that was spreading from the collapsed compound. The first ISIS fighter reached the edge of the crater, saw the darkness below, the exposed chambers, the glowing bone patterns. He tried to turn back. Ramirez shot him in the leg. He fell, tumbled into the crater, into the pattern of bones. The moment his blood touched the ancient remains, they flared with light, real light, painful brightness in the darkness. The ISIS fighter screamed, not from his wound, from something else. His body convulsed, withered, aged 1,000 years in seconds. And then he was just bones. More bones added to the pattern, more fuel for the seal. It's working, Torres shouted. Keep going. We need more. One by one, we forced them over the edge. Some we shot, some we pushed, some jumped rather than face us. Each one added their life to the seal. Each one made the light brighter, made the darkness retreat. 30 fighters, 30 sacrifices, 30 lives given to contain what their leaders had released. The darkness pulled back, retreated into the exposed chambers. The glow from the bone patterns intensified, forming a barrier, a new seal. Not as strong as the original, but enough to contain it. For now, we stood at the edge of the crater, weapons lowered, watching the seal stabilize. 7 of us. That's all that remained. Webb was somewhere in those chambers, taken by the darkness, Shadow and Anderson had vanished in the courtyard. Brooks had been caught by the darkness during the retreat. I'd seen it take him, seen the light go out of his eyes. 3 dead, 3 missing, 7 survivors. Is it over? Foster asked quietly. No, Torres said. Look at the seal. Look how it's already weakening. Those sacrifices bought us hours, maybe a day. But without the proper rituals, without the knowledge the ancients had, this seal won't hold. And when it breaks again, the darkness will spread further, faster. Then we call in an airstrike, Ramirez suggested. Level the whole area. Bury it so deep nothing can get out. You can't bomb an idea, Torres said. You can't kill something that isn't alive in the way we understand life. The darkness isn't in those chambers. The chambers are just the door. The darkness is somewhere else. Somewhere we can't reach with conventional weapons. All we can do is keep the door closed. For how long? Forever. Someone needs to maintain the seal. Renew it. Feed it. That's why the ancients established guardian orders, priesthoods, cults that passed the knowledge down through generations. That's why there are protective symbols in temples all across the Middle East. Why certain places are forbidden. Holy ground, cursed ground, different names for the same thing. Places where the seals must be maintained. And ISIS destroyed those guardians, I realized. They killed the people who'd been maintaining these seals for thousands of years. They dismissed them as superstition. And now there's no one left who knows how to keep the darkness contained. We stared into the crater, at the glowing bones, at the seal that was already beginning to fade. Behind us, Raqqa burned, the city we'd been fighting to liberate, the operation that had cost so many lives. And now we discovered something worse than ISIS. Something that ISIS had been trying to weaponize. Something that would spread across the world if we didn't find a way to contain it. Doc's radio crackled. Command. Wanting a status report. Wanting to know why Target Building 117 was now a crater. Wanting to know our casualty count. I looked at my remaining team. At the 7 faces that had seen too much. That had learned terrible secrets. That would carry this knowledge for the rest of their lives. What do we tell them? Doc asked. The truth, I said. We tell them what we found, what ISIS released, what we're dealing with. And then we let command make the decision they'll have to live with. They won't believe us. They'll believe the seal. They'll believe the darkness. They'll believe the bodies. We have evidence. We have a sound from the crater, not the darkness. Something else. Crying. Human crying. Weak. Terrified. Someone's alive down there, Porter said. We looked into the crater. Saw movement. A figure. Human-shaped. Climbing up from the chambers below. Covered in blood. Dragging themselves over bones. Shadow? Ramirez called out. Anderson? The figure looked up. It was Shadow, or what was left of him. His body was intact, but his eyes, God, his eyes, they were wrong, empty. The darkness had touched him, changed him. And when he opened his mouth to speak, the voice that came out was wrong. Multiple voices, overlapping, speaking in unison. The seal will not hold. We are already spreading. Already finding new vessels, already adapting. You cannot contain what has always been part of humanity. The darkness doesn't invade. It remembers. It reminds. It shows you what you really are beneath your civilization, beneath your morality, beneath your lies. And once you see it, once you remember, you cannot unsee. You cannot forget. You become us. You always were us. Ramirez raised his weapon. That's not Shadow. No, I agreed. It's not. The thing wearing Shadow's body smiled. But it will be. Just as it will be all of you. Eventually. The seal weakens. Our reach grows. Already, across this city, across this region, we touch minds. We remind them. We show them what they secretly desire, what they've always desired: power without restraint, freedom without consequence, truth without mercy. And they embrace us. They always embrace us. "Kill it," I ordered. Ramirez fired. A single shot. Shadow's body dropped, but the darkness that had been inside him flowed out, dispersed, dissipated into the air, or maybe just became invisible. Hard to tell. We stood in silence. Another teammate gone. Another body we'd have to explain. Another family we'd have to lie to about how their son, their brother, their father had died. Service members killed in action, we'd say. Heroes who gave their lives liberating Raqqa from ISIS. And it would be true, just not the whole truth. Never the whole truth. "We need to get out of here," Doc said. "The seal's fading. We've got maybe 6 hours before it fails completely. We need to report to command, get reinforcements, establish a perimeter." "It won't matter," Torres interrupted. "Don't you see? The seal's not just failing here. If what that thing said is true, if the darkness is already spreading through the city, finding new vessels, then containment is impossible. We're not dealing with a localized threat anymore. We're dealing with an infection, a psychological infection that spreads through consciousness itself." "Then what do we do?" Foster demanded. "Just give up? Let it win?" "We do what humans have always done when facing the darkness," Torres said. "We fight. We adapt. We survive. The ancients sealed it once. They didn't kill it. Couldn't kill it. Because you can't kill an idea. Can't kill a fundamental aspect of human nature. But they contained it, channeled it, used the darkness against itself. And we can do the same, if we're willing to pay the price." "What price?" Torres looked at each of us. "Someone has to stay. Someone has to maintain the seal. Feed it. Keep it active until proper guardians can be trained. Until the knowledge can be preserved and passed on. It's a one-way assignment. The seal requires constant renewal, constant sacrifice, small sacrifices, blood, pain, memory, identity. Whoever stays will slowly lose themselves, become part of the seal, part of the barrier between humanity and the darkness. But it's the only way to contain this until a permanent solution can be found." We stood in silence, each of us doing the math, weighing duty against survival, honor against self-preservation. 7 of us, 7 chances to volunteer. 7 soldiers who'd already lost 3 brothers today, who'd seen things that would haunt us forever, who'd been changed by this mission in ways we didn't yet understand. "I'll stay," I said. "No." Ramirez stepped forward. "You're the commanding officer. You need to report this. Need to make sure command understands what we're dealing with." "I'll stay." "Bull, you have a wife, kids. I'm not. And that's exactly why it should be me. I have something to fight for, something worth preserving. You're single. No family. The man needs you more than they need me." Before I could argue, Torres spoke up. "It should be me. I'm the only one who understands the rituals, the symbols, the languages. Without that knowledge, whoever stays won't know how to maintain the seal properly. It'll fail faster. I'm the only one qualified." "You're also the only one who can teach others," Doc countered. "If this knowledge needs to be preserved, passed on, you can't do that locked in a crater in Raqqa." "I'll stay. I'm a medic. I understand blood sacrifice, understand the human body, how much it can give before it breaks. I can maintain the seal longer than any of you." Foster shook his head. "You're all thinking too short-term. This seal needs to last years, maybe decades, until proper guardians can be established. That requires youth, endurance. I'm the youngest. I'll last the longest. It should be me." Porter stepped forward. "I'm 25, even younger. Nobody's staying, I said firmly. We're going to find another way. We'll establish a rotating guard. Multiple teams. Share the burden. Nobody has to sacrifice themselves permanently. That it won't work, Torres said quietly. The seal bonds to whoever activates it. Becomes part of them. Part of their consciousness. You can't rotate guardians. Once someone starts feeding the seal with their blood, their memories, their identity, they can't stop. Can't leave. The seal would interpret their departure as abandonment. Would fail immediately. This is a one-person assignment. For however long it takes. Which could be forever. We stood in the pre-dawn darkness, each of us processing this information. Processing the choice we had to make. 7 soldiers. 1 seal. 1 volunteer needed. 6 who would walk away. 1 who would stay behind. Forever. There has to be another way, Ramirez insisted. We're American Special Operations. We don't leave people behind. Ever. There has to be an explosion. Distant. Then another. Artillery fire. The battle for Raqqa was continuing. Coalition forces pushing forward. More buildings falling. More ground being taken from ISIS. And more ancient seals potentially being exposed. More doors potentially being opened. More darkness potentially being released. We're running out of time, Doc said, checking his watch. The seal's already at 60% strength. It's failing faster than Torres predicted. We need to make a decision. Now. I looked at my team. At the faces of men who'd served with honor. Who'd followed orders without question. Who deserved to go home to their families, their lives, their futures. And I knew what had to be done. Knew what leadership required. Not the authority to give orders, but the willingness to make the sacrifices you'd never ask of your men. I'm giving you all a direct order, I said. You will extract from this position immediately. You will report to command. You will tell them everything we found here. Everything we learned. And you will make sure this information reaches the right people. People who can establish proper containment, proper protocols, proper guardians. That's not a request. That's an order, and I expect it to be followed. And you? Ramirez asked, though he already knew the answer. I'm staying. Not because I'm the most qualified. Not because I'm the best choice. But because I'm the commander. This is my responsibility. My mission. My call. And I'm ordering you to leave me here. Captain, that's enough. Torres, brief me on how to maintain the seal. You've got 5 minutes. Everyone else, prep for extraction. Move. They wanted to argue. I could see it in their faces. But they were soldiers. They understood orders. Understood chain of command. And they understood that sometimes someone has to make the hard choice. Has to volunteer for the mission with no extraction. Has to stay behind so others can survive. Torres spent the next 5 minutes teaching me everything he knew. The symbols. The chants. The rituals. How to cut myself without causing fatal damage. How to time the blood offerings. How to focus my consciousness into the seal. How to become part of the barrier between humanity and the darkness below. It will hurt, he warned. Not just physically. The seal will feed on your memories. Your identity. Everything that makes you who you are. It needs those things to power itself. To maintain the barrier. You'll start forgetting. Names. Faces. Your own past. Eventually, you won't remember who you were. Won't remember why you're here. You'll just be part of the seal. Another bone in the pattern. Another sacrifice given to hold back the darkness. How long? Until the seal can be properly restored. Or until you die. Whichever comes first. Could be months. Could be years. No way to know. And if I fail? If I can't maintain it? Then the darkness spreads. Not just in Raqqa. Everywhere. It will find the other seals. The other doors. Will break them from inside. And once enough seals fail, once enough doors open, containment becomes impossible. The darkness will spread across the world, not through conquest, through transformation. It will remind humanity what we really are, what we've always been. And civilization, morality, society, all of it will crumble. We'll revert to what we were before the seals, before the sacrifices, before the ancient guardians gave their lives to protect us from ourselves. He handed me a knife, not military issue, ancient, stone blade, older than metal, older than written language, the tool the first guardians had used. This blade has been passed down for thousands of years, Taurus said, given from guardian to guardian, each one adding their blood to its edge, each one becoming part of its purpose. Use it, honor those who came before, and know that your sacrifice matters, that it means something, that you're part of a tradition older than any nation, any religion, any civilization. You're humanity's shield, and we'll remember you, even if you forget yourself. He pressed the knife into my hand. It was warm, alive, heavy with the weight of centuries, heavy with the souls of everyone who'd wielded it before, everyone who'd given their blood to maintain the seals, everyone who'd been forgotten by history but remembered by the darkness they'd held back. The team prepared to extract. Doc left me medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, painkillers, enough to last months if I was careful. Ramirez left me ammunition, food, water, survival gear. Porter left me a radio, encrypted, one-way transmission. I could send reports but couldn't receive. Command didn't want anyone trying to communicate with me, didn't want anyone tempted to attempt a rescue. Foster was the last to leave. He stood at the crater's edge, looking down at me, looking at the seal that was already beginning to glow brighter as I fed it my blood, looking at a man who was slowly becoming something else. "We'll come back for you," he promised. "Once Command establishes proper containment, once they train new guardians, we'll come back." "No, you won't," I said. Not with bitterness, just acceptance. This is a one-way mission. We both know that. The seal doesn't release its guardians. It consumes them, uses them up. I'm dead the moment I committed to this. I just haven't stopped moving yet. Then why do it? Why sacrifice yourself for a world that won't even know you're here, that will forget you? Because that's what soldiers do. We stand between the darkness and everyone else. We hold the line. We make the hard choices. And sometimes we stay behind so others can go home. That's not sacrifice. That's duty. Foster saluted. I returned it. Then he was gone, climbing out of the crater, disappearing into the ruins of Raqqa, following the others to the extraction point, leaving me alone with the seal, with the darkness, with the ancient responsibility I'd accepted. I sat down among the bones, among the sacrifices that had been made over millennia, picked up the stone knife, cut my palm, let blood drip onto the pattern, and felt the seal respond, felt it connect to me, anchor itself to my consciousness, begin feeding on my memories, my thoughts, my identity. The first thing I lost was yesterday, the firefight, the entry into the compound, Webb's death, just gone, erased from my memory like it had never happened. Then the day before, the briefing, the planning, the intelligence reports, fading, dissolving, being absorbed by the seal to fuel its barrier. I understood then what Torres had meant. The seal didn't just need blood. It needed memory, needed consciousness, needed everything that made a person human. Because the darkness was composed of human consciousness stripped of humanity, and the only way to hold it back was to sacrifice what it lacked. Sacrifice identity, self, the very things that made us different from the darkness. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time lost meaning. I maintained the seal, cut myself regularly, Let my blood feed the pattern. Let my memories fuel the barrier. I forgot my name first, then my rank, then my service history. One by one, the pieces of who I'd been crumbled away, absorbed by the seal, transformed into protection for a world that would never know I existed. I forgot faces. My mother, my father, friends from childhood, comrades who died beside me, all gone, consumed, their memories sacrificed to maintain the barrier. I forgot places, cities I'd served in, bases I'd deployed from, the layout of the house I'd grown up in, all erased, replaced with knowledge of the seal, understanding of the barrier, awareness of the darkness pressing against it from below. Sometimes I caught myself wondering who I was, why I was here, what I was doing in this crater surrounded by bones. But the stone knife in my hand reminded me, the seal pulsing with my blood reminded me, the darkness pressing from below reminded me. I was the guardian, the barrier, the sacrifice, and I would remain so until I had nothing left to give. Command sent drones occasionally, observed from above, made sure the seal was holding, made sure I was still functional. They didn't communicate, didn't acknowledge, didn't thank. I was a classified asset now, a human component in a containment system, acknowledged but not recognized, observed but not contacted, maintained but not rescued. I saw them sometimes, other guardians, not physically, but through the seal, through the network of barriers that span the world. Thousands of us, in Syria, in Iraq, in Egypt, in Jordan, in every place where the darkness had doors, in every location where ancient seals had been established, all of us bleeding, all of us feeding the barriers, all of us slowly losing ourselves to maintain containment. Some were volunteers like me, soldiers who'd stumbled onto the truth, who'd made the same choice. Others were prisoners, criminals sentenced to serve the seal. Still others were believers, members of secret orders that maintained the ancient traditions. All of us serving the same purpose, all of us becoming the same thing. Less human, more barrier, more seal, more protection against the darkness that humanity had tried to transcend and failed. I learned the truth through the seal, learned what Taurus had only partially understood. The darkness wasn't an external threat, wasn't an invasion from some other realm. It was us, humanity, our ancestors from so far back that history didn't record them. They'd found a way to transcend physical limitation, to become pure consciousness, pure will, pure power. And in doing so, they'd lost everything that made consciousness worth having. Lost empathy, lost connection, lost the ability to care about anything except their own existence, their own expansion, their own consumption. The civilizations that came after had fought them, had learned that physical weapons couldn't kill what wasn't physical. So they'd done the only thing possible. They'd sealed them away, used human sacrifice to create barriers, used consciousness to contain consciousness, used humanity to hold back what humanity had become. And they'd maintained those seals for thousands of years, passed the knowledge down, kept the darkness contained, until modern times, until skepticism replaced faith, until science dismissed superstition, until the guardians were killed or forgotten, until the seals began to fail. Not all at once, slowly, gradually, one door opening, then another, the darkness seeping back into the world, testing, learning, adapting, waiting for enough seals to fail that containment became impossible. ISIS hadn't known what they were doing, hadn't understood the forces they were releasing. They'd been looking for weapons, for power, for something that would give them advantage in their war. And the darkness had used that desire, had whispered to them through dreams, through visions, had guided them to the seals, had convinced them to break the barriers. And when the darkness had been released, ISIS had realized their mistake. Too late. Far too late. But the darkness had learned from them. Learned about modern humanity. About our weapons, our technology, our civilization. And it was patient. It could wait. Wait for more seals to fail. Wait for more doors to open. Wait for the right moment to spread. To remind humanity what we really were. What we'd always been. What we tried to seal away but could never truly destroy. I didn't know how long I maintained the seal. Months? Years? Time had no meaning anymore. I existed in an eternal present. Cutting myself. Bleeding. Feeding the barrier. Forgetting. Always forgetting. Until there was nothing left of who I'd been. Just the guardian. Just the seal. Just the sacrifice. Sometimes I heard helicopters overhead. Saw drones circling. Knew that somewhere above me, the world continued. The war in Syria ended. Or maybe didn't end. ISIS was defeated. Or maybe wasn't defeated. Life went on. Or maybe didn't. I couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't remember. Couldn't care. All that mattered was the seal. The barrier. The darkness pressing from below. And then one day, or night, I couldn't tell, I heard footsteps. Human footsteps. Someone descending into the crater. Multiple someones. Speaking in English. American accents. Military discipline in their movements. Target located, a voice said. Guardian is still functional. Seal is holding at 78%. Mission successful. I looked up. Saw soldiers. Special operations by their gear. A new team. Fresh faces. Well equipped. They stood at the edge of the bone pattern, careful not to step on the seal. Studying me like I was an object. A curiosity. A thing rather than a person. Guardian, can you understand me? One of them asked. A captain by his insignia. Young. Professional. Reminded me of someone. Couldn't remember who. I tried to speak. My voice was gone. Hadn't used it in so long I'd forgotten how. I nodded instead. Yes, I could understand. Some part of me still comprehended language. Still recognized human speech. We're establishing proper containment, the captain said. Trained guardians. Proper rotation protocols. You'll be relieved of duty soon. Extracted. Debriefed. Given medical treatment. You've earned rest. You've earned to go home. I shook my head. No, that wasn't how this worked. The seal didn't release its guardians. It consumed them. I knew this. Had known it when I'd volunteered. Had accepted it. There was no relief. No extraction. No going home. There was only the seal. The sacrifice. The duty that ended only when the guardian had nothing left to give. The captain seemed to understand. You're right. The seal has bonded to you. Removing you would cause it to fail. We can't risk that. Not until the new containment protocols are fully established. So you'll stay. But not alone. We're establishing a permanent presence here. Rotating teams. Proper infrastructure. You won't be forgotten. Won't be abandoned. You'll be honored. Remembered. Given the recognition you deserve. But I was already forgetting this conversation. Already losing the words. The faces. The promise of relief that couldn't be fulfilled. The seal was hungry. Always hungry. And I had so little left to give. Just fragments now. Pieces of consciousness. Shards of identity. Soon there would be nothing. Just the barrier. Just the protection. Just the eternal duty of holding back the darkness. The soldiers left. Or maybe stayed. I couldn't tell. Couldn't care. There was only the seal now. Only the blood. Only the stone knife cutting into flesh that barely felt pain anymore. Only the darkness pressing from below. Always pressing. Always hungry. Always waiting for the seal to fail. And I knew it would fail. Eventually. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday, the seal required human sacrifice to function, required consciousness to maintain, and consciousness, no matter how dedicated, eventually ran out, eventually had nothing left to give. And when that happened, when guardians like me finally expired, when the seals finally failed, the darkness would return, would spread, would remind humanity what we tried to forget. But not today. Today the seal held. Today the barrier stood. Today one more sacrifice bought one more day of protection for a world that would never know, would never understand, would never appreciate what had been given to keep them safe. I cut my palm again, let blood drip onto ancient bones, felt the seal pulse with renewed strength, felt another memory dissolve, another piece of identity fade, another fragment of self consumed by the barrier. And somewhere above, in the ruins of Raqqa, in the remains of a city torn apart by war, life continued. People fought, people dived, people survived, protected by sacrifices they would never know about, by guardians they would never meet, by seals maintained through eternal vigilance and absolute dedication. I was one of those guardians now, would always be one of those guardians, until nothing remained of who I'd been, until I became just another set of bones in the pattern, another sacrifice given to hold back the darkness, another unnamed soldier who'd stood between humanity and the abyss. And when I finally gave out, when the seal consumed the last of what I was, someone else would take my place, another volunteer, another sacrifice, another guardian stepping forward to maintain the barrier. Because that's what we do. That's what we've always done. Since the first ancient people recognized the darkness within us, since the first seals were established, since the first sacrifices were made, we stand, we hold, we endure, not for glory, not for recognition, not for reward, but because someone must, because the darkness cannot be allowed to spread, because humanity, despite everything, deserves to be protected from what we once were, what we might become again if the seals ever fail completely. My name is, I can't remember. My rank was, it's gone. I served in, somewhere. I volunteered for, this. I am the guardian of the seal beneath Raqqa, and I will remain so until nothing remains of me but duty, but sacrifice, but service. The seal pulses, the darkness presses, the barrier holds. For now, that's all any of us can promise. For now.